treatment plants and one technology. My argument is, on the front end it may be more cost effective, but on the long end it's much more costly. So I don't think I have anything else to say on that. Steve?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Steve Filipovic, and I'll have to admit that in the early days of, say, after year 2000, I was for a sewage treatment plant being brought into the fold by James Schwark in his colorful costume. And really the media didn't have a real dynamic information dissemination about the subject. Right? There wasn't a lot of give and take, there wasn't both sides of the argument presented, and a lot of people were just sort of getting on the bandwagon in that time. And since then, I can't remember when, but I came across the Arrest website a long time ago. How many people here are members of Arrest? Right on. It's a great website, it's a great source. I know it's documented well with a lot of scientific information and a lot of health professionals who've agreed that there is no health risk. Our system is very effective. 99.97% of the effluent coming through our sewer system is water. Right? We have a primary screen, and that does screen off all the larger pieces of whatever, and that's shipped to Heartland Road. Under the billion-dollar sewage treatment plant, what they're doing is they're investing a lot of money to create an artificial natural environment, as opposed to using the natural environment that we already have. And one of the problems that they have there is it doesn't actually digest everything fully. It settles stuff, and then they have to take the solids away, and it's a lot more solids than are being taken away now. And because these solids have heavy metals in them, a small amount of heavy metals in them, and pharmaceuticals in them, they can't be used for fertilizing, which was an issue that was brought up a few months ago with the CRD. They were saying that they were going to, we'll just use this for composting and it'll be really good. And storing biomass is a very effective thing to do. It's very important for our future to constantly be building our soil because it's constantly eroding down. But the problem is that it's very expensive to separate the heavy metals and the pharmaceuticals from this biomass. So then they weren't able to conscionably spread it over Sandwich Peninsula, so they decided, well, we'd have to take it to the landfill. And of course, Heartland landfill is already filling up. It only has a few years left to it. So if they were adding all this extra bulk to it, we would actually close the landfill sooner. So then they came up with a plan of shipping the waste products to the mainland, which is insane. We all know that we're using too much carbon fuel right now, or we're creating too many emissions for the atmosphere. So here we have a $1 billion project that will cost a huge amount to maintain it and run it in its yearly operations. And we have all this shipping of hazardous material across BC to another storage facility where those heavy metals and pharmaceuticals will then be stored on land, where they become a concentrated mass and it basically create a toxic wasteland. So it's a really bad plan. It's poorly thought out. It seems to be really about the money and the contract and the jobs and to create this new mega center. It's not about actually dealing with sewage, because if they were actually trying to deal with sewage, they would all be very happy with the system we have now, which is very effective. By the government's own standards, because they do set up standards, and they have a measurement of total suspended solids. And they say that for sewage, at the municipal regulations, say that sewage shouldn't be more than 45 milligrams per liter of total suspended solids. And then they have more stricter national performance guidelines at 25 milligrams per liter. And at the outfall we have here, we've had scientists measure the concentrations, and they were as low as 1.27 to 1.29 milligrams per liter. So that is really effective sewage treatment. Okay, this is a lot cleaner than a lot of other cities are putting into their river, right, or putting into their lakes, right? And that could be a concern because you want those levels very high in lakes. The lake's not flushing, but our ocean is constantly flushing. There's a current that runs along the west coast there, and it's totally flushing stuff out to sea. So it's only on a very rare occasion where we have a particularly strange storm that will actually get a little bit of stuff blown up on shore. And apparently the health officials or the previous Minister of Health has said that the levels are so low there that it does not pose a risk to people, and it's such a short time. So we really have an effective system here. If we really wanted to be investing into cleaning our environment, source controls is the answer. Right? Heavy metals and pharmaceuticals, if they're bad for your environment, they're bad for you. And we should be working on a system to help get us not have these things ingested into our body, right? We are depending on the pharmaceutical industry far too much. The average person who's on pharmaceuticals is on 7 different pharmaceuticals. They only require testing for side effects for 3 pharmaceuticals. So as soon as someone's taking 4, 5, 6, 7 different pharmaceuticals to deal with all their ails, they have no clue what the real health ramifications are. And of course, the ultimate health ramification is it's poisoning our environment. So that's something to consider. But I know that the present sewage system that we have now is far more effective. Another good place to put our money if we wanted to be preserving water quality would be creating filter systems for storm drains. Because storm drains run over our cars and our roads, and it collects far more toxic and hazardous material than our sewage does. But there isn't a city, or maybe Portland, Oregon might have one now. I've heard rumor that there's one. But most cities in North America do not have storm drain filtering systems in place. So that would be where we put our bang for our buck if we were trying to care for our environment. But I don't think that this new sewage program is trying to care for our environment. What it's trying to do is take care of our dollars. And by that I mean shovel it up the line to the guys in charge. So I think this is something that we really should be focusing on, continuing to build a lot of political will around, preserving what we have in place, and investing our future dollars in other projects that we could be spending our money on far more wisely.
Okay. Now, in absolute fairness to the incumbent, as Paul calls him, the Georgia Strait Alliance has published a list of questions and answers supporting the plant, and I asked them to attend here, but I don't see anybody from that organization either. However, I also have asked somebody from Arrest, and that is John Newcomb, who's involved with that organization. And what I thought I would do is just ask him one or two of the questions that are posed in the Georgia Strait Alliance questionnaire. And so, first of all, John, would you just tell us a little bit about Arrest?
Okay, Arrest, the Association for Responsible and Environmental Sewage Treatment, was formed about 5 years ago, building on another organization, RSTP, Responsible Sewage Treatment Victoria, with Dr. Sean Peck, the former health officer for the city. We have about 50 members, 90 on our email list, and we've been basically working with the University of Victoria faculty, oceanographers. Myself, I'm a retired geographer. Bill Wolferstan has been very active in his career in the provincial government, the Ministry of the Environment, so we have some environmental capacity. And we put out a number of documents over the years where our scientists, the oceanographers, are the ones who are chemical oceanographers, know the most about this, and marine biologists like Dr. Jack Littlepage. But Arrest has basically been an orientation towards science and bringing it out to the public, because so much of what's been going on with the sewage treatment has been a top-down approach, where the Minister of Environment, Barry Penner, commissioned virtually a secret report that basically went ahead and said, yeah, we've got to do sewage treatment. Our scientists answered that report and answered a number of other things too that have come up. And it's important to bring science forward. It's not the only thing, because the Mr. Floaty thing had nothing to do with science. It was very much a media scare. I was in the Chamber of Commerce at the time heading their Environment Committee. And it was quite palpable, the fear amongst business people that if Mr. Floaty goes to Seattle and starts to harangue us, we're going to lose a lot of business. So it's an economic thing too, and that's the hardest thing to deal with. Those of you that might be concerned about things like smart meters, you know there's a debate about the science about that. If you're with HST or against HST, there's a debate about the economics. The problem with, I guess, the sewage issue is so much of it has been emotional. Oh gosh, ooh, that's going out into the strait. Terrible place to put it. We're dumping raw sewage. Our scientists have tried to answer that, saying that in the world as it exists in Victoria and our marine environment, that's the best place for it given these circumstances and who we are. And it could change, there's no doubt about it. What's happening, we see, is it's going in the other direction. The CRD is spending $300,000 to improve the quality of runoff of the Heartland landfill. That Heartland landfill leachate goes into our sewage. As the quality of the Heartland landfill leachate improves, our sewage effluent improves too. But even then, as you point out, the CRD scientists say that with issues like suspended solids and biological oxygen demand, we're doing fine right now. And every year they've been reporting that. But for our environment, we're doing just fine. I guess the issue that the candidates here, should they become mayor, they're going to have to deal with is the fact that we have a provincial government that is still hell-bent for leather to force us to conform, a federal government that wants to force us to conform as if we were in Vanderhoof and not Victoria. And I think what Arrest is trying to do is just to point out the uniqueness of Victoria in spite of a provincial government, in spite of a federal government. And I know the word is, well, we've been mandated to do it. We can't change a mandate. People said the same thing about HST. Gosh, you can't change a mandate for HST, and we're saying, look at the science, and maybe we should consider that. And I guess that's going to be the toughest issues that I would put to our mayoral candidates here. If you become mayor, how are you going to fight a province and a federal government who are wanting to mandate us to do something that the science just doesn't support? Maybe I'll ask Paul Brown to go first.
I think there are two strong arguments for it. One, from this, and again, you have to argue or debate it based upon their perspective. The perspective, I think, John, you mentioned is, there are really three factors that come to play whenever a government makes a decision. One, does it make economic sense? Well, it doesn't. Two, is it going to make a difference? Performance? Well, it isn't. And three, how does it look? And it's how it looks that is causing them to do this. That's my argument, is the aesthetic side. I think you have to appeal to two areas from their standpoint. Both of them are in a financial crunch. They really would prefer not to spend this money, or they're looking for ways out of spending money, and that's, I think, one of the savings grace. I mean, the stars may be coming into alignment for us because both governments have got their backs against the wall. So there's that, and I think we need to remind them of that. In fact, I'm trying to remember the chap's name that ran in the last federal election for this riding, for the Conservatives. Ran against Denis Savard. He did very well. I mean, I would have thought Chris Costin would have been number 2, but this guy actually pulled him. So anyways, regardless of what his name is, and I'm not conservative, I don't want to give you that impression, I don't belong to a political party, but I did speak